More than 300 Sewage and Water Board employees were at their posts when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans on August 29, 2005. And they stayed through the catastrophic flooding that engulfed 80% of New Orleans after the levees broke. These dedicated and heroic employees were first responders providing critical emergency sewerage and water board system restorations, while in many instances fighting for their own survival and the survival of others. Their valiant efforts must not be forgotten but preserved for austerity as a testament to the courage, tenacity, and dedication of these employees in the face of overwhelming odds. Richard Reese, a veteran employee of the Sewage and Water Board, weathered the storm at Drainage Pumping Station number 5. That's in the city's lower Ninth Ward. The station is located directly next to a breach that occurred on the Industrial Canal flood wall. In case I'm not the one editing this, can you please state your name for the camera?
Yep. Okay, my name is Richard Reese, pumping and power plant relief operator at the Sewage and Water Board.
Where were you on August 29th?
Station 5 in the 9th Ward.
Station 5.
Right.
What happened?
About 6:10 or 6:15 in the morning, we noticed water coming down the driveway. And at first we were just confused because we didn't know where it was coming from. You know, no one mentioned that anything was going on, so we didn't really know. So we just followed the water and watched it, monitored, and didn't realize, wait a minute, it's getting pretty deep out there. And you know, it was coming from the railroad track area by the levee. Mm-hmm. And that's about what happened. We just noticed water coming down, and then it started filling up. So we started communicating with Central Control about that we're receiving water.
What was going on in your mind at this point?
I didn't really know what was going on because it didn't dawn on me that anything was topping a levees or the wall at the levee. And it was just normal business until we realized that, wait a minute, it started coming in the walls of the station.
Can you describe how that happened?
I guess we had notified Central Control that we were getting water, and he had asked us our suction, and by that time the water was coming through the bricks where the conduit and electrical conduit goes through the bricks. It was coming in there and it was spraying into the station, starting to fill the floor up on the station. Then I realized, wait a minute, we got something serious going on. I mean, at first I thought that maybe the water was just going to fill in the street out there and it was just some runoffs from somewhere. And then when it started coming through the conduit and they asked our discharge, and it was top. The discharge gauge was at the top of it.
Wow.
And they said cut the power to the station because we were running our pumps. And they run off of 6,600 volts. And they do have a ledge about this high that surrounds the pump pit. But they were afraid if it got over that, if they didn't cut it, it would short out. And shorting out 6,600 would be quite an explosion. So when they cut the power, though, we went in the office and there was no windows, so everything went black. And then the panic set in then.
Can you describe the panic?
It was chaos. I mean, we didn't know what to do, what was going on, because, you know, the water was coming in and it was filling up. And then it started coming in our office, which is, you're up on top of the office and then you step down into the station. So you go down. So once that had filled up, it was coming in the office. Well, it was, you know, we were trying to get out the office, and we had radio contact at that time with Central Control, and they had told us, you know, that to do what we got to do, you know, to save ourselves. So we had another employee. He was saying about getting a boat. We need a boat because he couldn't swim. And a boat came up to the station and floated in, so we pulled it in and drained the water.
So you needed a boat, and a boat showed up.
He just was going back and forth from the office to the front door, stating that, we need a boat, I can't swim, I'm gonna drown, we're gonna drown. So then he came in about 5 minutes later and said, they got a boat against the wall right there, where they unload and load trucks at. So we took the railing off, because we couldn't get it over the railing, the railing's on pipes, and we pulled it out, and then I remember holding on to the boat till we could bail it out enough, because the current was trying to pull it around, and I remember my arm was killing me.
Did you wonder where the boat came from all of a sudden?
A couple of people said, you know, basically like I believe, they said God sent it, because we just stating that you need a boat and then a boat shows up is pretty miraculous. I mean, you didn't expect the boat to come in.
What would have happened had that boat not come in?
We would have had to stay in the station until basically somebody came to rescue us. But we knew at the time that if we got this boat, it was going to be our way out. Once everything was over with and everything was settled down. So we bailed it out and we tied it up in the back because we knew this was going to be it. We're going to get out of here. At least we got a boat.
At what point did you start to fear for your life?
When we had just got the boat, we bailed it out, but my body, my mouth, tongue, it went numb. Because at that time, I didn't realize how I was overreacting the severity of it. I was thinking at this station, we're going to fill up and it's going to go over and we're just going to drown.
The water was coming in
that fast, right? Because something must have broken because we went from here to way up here. You know, I mean, in a matter of minutes.
So the water was coming in very fast. Did you assume something broke at that point?
Sort of, not really, but I just knew something. It was rising quickly enough to where I didn't know. I couldn't think rationally enough to think it was going to stop. So I thought what I actually really thought was that, you know, you're in a movie and you see the guy falls overboard and he's looking up through the water. I thought that was me looking out. And I thought about my wife and my mom and dad. I said, I'm never going to see them again. Then about 20 minutes later, everything set in that I realized, well, wait a minute. The station's 50 foot high. This is not going to happen. I'm going to be able to float up there and get up there. But it was just for about a half hour, I guess you could say my mind just went straight, like it just didn't think.
You say a sense of panic.
Right, panic, like an anxiety attack.
Was everybody going through this?
Well, yeah, because they wanted to actually take the boat and go to the Claiborne Bridge. And being that I hunt and fish basically my whole life, I said, you can't do that. You have no paddle. The water's moving so fast. I said, you can't figure out how to get over there, and you'll never make it over there. I said, you'll drown. You'll go to BFI, you'll just drown. So I said, it's better to keep the boat and use it to get out. And, you know, because I knew they've never been in boats before. So all they thought was get out.
How many of your coworkers couldn't swim?
Basically one I know for sure. And the only way I knew that was because he stated it, that he couldn't swim. He was on the phone, I was on the radio, get somebody here, I'm going to drown. Get us, you know, and that's the guy who actually got the boat.
Well, thank God for that boat.
Right. I mean, we used it to get out because the water was still 10 foot, 15 foot around the station, and we used it to get out.
I can't imagine how frightening that must have been.
Oh, it was. I mean, it was. I've never experienced anything like that, much less a storm of that category before. So it was something new, and I think that's what made so much fear, because you didn't. And to think about what you lost in your possessions and all, and your house and all of that. You went into a survival mode. It was just survive. You thought about what you owned later, but at that moment it was like, you know, I gotta live. That's all and that's true. When you go under that kind of pressure, all you think about is I gotta live. It doesn't matter what you own. I mean, we lost all our vehicles there. I mean, because it topped our vehicles and all, but you didn't think about that. You know, I was floating around. I got me an Igloo ice chest, the little barrel one, and I had an extra set of clothes, and I had some things that I brought with me, and I looked around and I said, well, wait a minute. I emptied that out and I put the lid off and I put all that in there, and I had a string, and I was floating around the station towing that behind me. And it worked.
That's how you got around.
Yeah, well, you had to float with your life preserver until we got into the switchgear room where we could use the ladder. And we put the ladder, and it was up maybe 15 foot, so we all got on the top of that. And that was later that evening, because I stood on top a pump because I was ready in case to go up high if I had to. And once I figured out about 5:30, 6:30 in the evening, I said, well, all right, everything's calming down. So I jumped off of there and swam through the office into the switchgear room where a couple of guys were already on the top of there.
When you became aware of the status of the other pumping stations and what was going on in the rest of the city, what did you think?
I didn't really know what was going on, because at that time we had lost communication, and I didn't know how bad it was on that side. I didn't know if they were experiencing the same thing we were, because after the storm I could actually go out on our platform and look at station 19, which was across the bridge, right. And I could see the employees out on the railing out there.
So you knew they were over.
Yeah, and they were looking at us, and they could wave, but they were so small. I mean, it was so far. I mean, you couldn't hear them or nothing. And our cell phones had went underwater.
Did you feel helpless at that point?
Pretty helpless, very helpless. And you know, we watched helicopters come and take people off the roofs, and we thought they were waving at them. They thought they were coming to get us, but they never, you know, they kept going the other way every time they got off. So I was kind of screaming at them, you know, and like I told some of the other guys, I said, you know, they seen us, no worry, they coming to get us. They just got a guy off a roof about 6 houses down. And he was a little ways away. I said, he's got to see us, but they kept going, nobody came. So we used our boat to really get out of there. That's what we did to Station 19.
So you had to get out of there. You had to leave that.
Right. We had no water. We had no food now for almost 2 days. And basically we had to get out of there. And I said, we got to get to 19. Because, you know, I didn't know the condition over there, but it had to be either the same or better than we had, you know.
What point did you say to yourself, it's time to get this water out of the city?
That was basically when we got out of Station 5, we got over there, we made it there on I think Tuesday evening, and that's when reports were coming in that the levees at the 17th Street Canal and London Avenue were failing. They failed like on Tuesday. So we didn't really know. Another supervisor was on the radio stating that the water was coming. The water was coming. We didn't know what he meant by the water coming because we surrounded by water.
You already got water.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what did they mean the water's coming. I didn't know that, you know, then I'd realize Tuesday evening the city was starting to get water. Or Tuesday around noon or whatever it was. And, you know, we were pumping. My supervisor was pumping. And we thought the water was falling a little bit, but it wasn't. It was just our imagination. Till they called him that it's just circulating, so then we shut the pump down. But we had diesel generators over there, so the generators were keeping us with lights, you know, and different things over there. And their office was above on top, where ours was below. So we lost all our food too. So they had food. So they started sharing food with us, so we got food then. And they had water, they had some drums, distilled water and stuff like that.
How long did you stay in Station 19?
19 till I think Friday evening. Friday evening, Coast Guard boat came up the canal and said that, do y'all need any help? And one of the other operators said, can you get us out of here? He said, well, I can get y'all out of here. I'm going over to the airport. I'm going to go up the Industrial Canal, go out through the lake. He had to go, actually, everything was so closed off, he had to go up the Industrial Canal, go into the ship channel, then circle around through the twin spans and come out around.
Wow.
And I mean, this boat, this Coast Guard boat had two 250s on it. It looked like a raft looking, big raft. Yeah. But I remember seeing about 20 5-gallon cans of fuel filled up. So they had enough fuel to get us where we were going. But we got detained because they had an emergency. So they took us off that boat and put us on a local fisherman's boat that was helping out. And they brought us by the dock by Highway 11. So we made it over to Highway 11, and from there they brought us to a shelter. And then we stood at that shelter till I got in touch with my wife, the only phone working. And I called them, and they came down from Memphis. And they came down and picked us up and brought some of us and dropped some of our co-workers off at somewhere in Mississippi. And then, you know, we made it up to Memphis. So that's how we got to where we were going.
Wow. Did you ever think that there might be a chance that you wouldn't make it out?
Well, like I said, when the water was coming in the station, I didn't think I was going to live. But that became reality that after about an hour, half hour, so wait a minute, this is, you know, water was slowing down. Everything was kind of equalizing, I guess. And then getting at Station 19, we had some people telling us they were coming to get us by helicopter. But every time a helicopter passed over, we'd run out on the deck thinking they're coming to get us, but they would just go by. But one of my co-workers was in a little worse shape than me. He had got diesel in his eyes because all our 55-gallon waste straw drums in Varsaw flipped over. So he was kind of a large guy, so he couldn't swim. That was the one who couldn't swim. He had 2 life jackets on. Well, he rode it out on top of a locker. He was going across, and he got on top of a locker that was floating, but what he didn't realize was all the drums of Varsaw and diesel had flipped over, so it was got in his eyes. So when he got back, it was in his eyes. So then when he got to 19, the helicopter came, and he was a diabetic. So they brought him, they asked him what kind of medicine he needed, so they brought him the medicine on a helicopter, and they took him out. And he got out that way. And I had had an accident at work in '99, and I had a bad disc in my back. So I thought they were coming to get me, and when I went to go get in, they told me, no, we can only take one, because they had a bunch of water in there, so I couldn't go. And I had back issues, pretty bad back issues in '99 I had an accident, so it just conjured all them injuries back up because of the stress and the picking up of things we had to do. And you're in a mode of survival mode, so you're doing a lot of things you shouldn't be doing.
Exactly.
And when I got to 19, I was just hobbling over there. So basically, but I did get out through the Coast Guard, but I thought the helicopter was coming. But
how significant would you say the Sewage and Water Board was in getting this city back to running order?
They were good, as good as they could be. I mean, it was a tough situation, and getting it back together was picking a starting point was very difficult, because you had to have a lot of repairs done, and you had nobody to do the repairs, because a lot of these machines are very large, and you can't just pick it up and ship it out and go get it done. So a lot of the work had to be done on site. So once they got the crews in and started getting everything together, it moved quicker than what I thought. I mean, I feel like they did a very good job at it.
Would you describe this as a heroic effort?
Yes, it was heroic. Everyone was heroic. I mean, you know, the whole water board. I mean, everybody that stayed, everybody that worked together. It was a team effort that had to be done, and you knew that, you know, you had to put aside, you know, what happened with your house and all of that. Because at the time, I didn't really know what happened until I was on a Coast Guard boat, and he asked me, "Where do you live?" I said, "Well, I live in St. Bernard." I said, and he just looked at me and he kind of turned his head. And I said, "Why? What's up? What's up?" Because I could look at his face. Because I'm thinking, you know, you thought of hope.
Yeah.
Well, maybe, just maybe, it didn't flood. And till he told me, he said, "No, about 10 foot of water." And I'm like, "Well, everywhere?" And he said, "Everywhere." So then it set in that, well, I lost everything I owned, because I went there with basically nothing, and I had nothing to leave, and I had nothing to go back to, because as you know, St. Bernard was closed off for so many months. When I did get to go back to my house, it was just destroyed. Yep. And what would have been good was destroyed by not being able to get back to it for so long. I mean, it was months October before they let us get back in. So I think they did a very good job. I mean, it was a tough situation where do I start? You know, who do I contact? You know, how do I get these machines repaired? That has to be done, a lot of it has to be torn down, and you need cranes to move all this stuff.
And if you hadn't had workers who were experienced enough to know the equipment.
Of course, the electricians are very experienced and trained on the job to this type of equipment. That's why you can't just hire an electrician to fool with 25 cycle. They have to be trained on it. It's unique to the water board, 25 cycle. And these guys, electricians, they know, and they fool with it, that, you know, from the supervisors on down, some of them's got 25, 30 years. I mean, they've been fooling with this stuff a long time, so you couldn't get outside help. You had to rely on electricians. Now, they had outside help come in, but they had to be coached and trained by the electricians that were here. Because they 25 cycles, some of them might have said, well, what is 25 cycle? I know it's a lower, you know, it's a slower cycle of, yeah, but I've never heard of it. Well, the board had this from the turn of the century, like, you know, to early 20s and that, and they switched a lot of things over to 60 cycle, but they kept it, a lot of it 25.
The flooding of New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina was the most devastating disaster to hit any U.S. city. When most of the city was evacuating, some 300 Sewage and Water Board employees stayed on the job, facing great personal peril to respond to this devastating crisis. We salute our Katrina heroes who met the greatest challenge of their lives and found a way to rise above the storm and overcome the impact of Hurricane Katrina. The board's forces dewatered the city in 11 days after the breaches were closed and began to restore quality of life, services of water, sewer, and drainage to the city. It was the restoration of these services that made it possible for citizens to return. It was the restoration of these services that made it possible for progress to begin, going from devastation to recovery, restoration, and today, rebuilding of the most complex infrastructure in the country. Today, confidence in the Sewerage and Water Board's management and fiscal responsibility has resulted in the first water and sewer rate increases since the 1990s. These increases will be the building blocks for the development and the continuous rebuilding of the board's systems in the future.